It is a great kavod, a great honor and a privilege to introduce Rav Dovid Greenberger. We go back many years. I remember from South Africa, and we're here now in Yerushalayim. Rav, if you could let us know when you were born and a history of your family.
Yeah. I was born in what is today Romania, and there is a district in the country which is mostly on the west side of the Romania, which belonged until the end of the World War I to Hungary. The Hungarian Empire was huge, and the moment they lost the war, we know the First World War was, from one hand, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and they lost the war. Then, like a vulture, when the vulture smells that there are around it dead animals, it attacks and grabs and takes from it as much as he can. So happened to the Hungarian Empire. Therefore, you find today Jews from Romania, from Slovakia, from Slovenia, from I don't know each another country, all of them speaking Hungarian. Why? Because that culture of the Hungary, which lost until 1917, it has still influence on the people until this very day, which is over 102 years from that time. And I was there 10 years ago visiting. I went to visit my grandmother's kever in the cemetery, in the Jewish cemetery, and I relied on the knowledge of my Hungarian language. Otherwise, I couldn't manage, because I don't know Romanian. I don't know. I left the country when I was 10, and I don't know a word in the Romanian language, but because I spoke Hungarian all the time with my mother especially, therefore I speak fluently Hungarian.
And Rav, when were you born? In what year?
Now I go back to that. I was born in 1940. That was already Romania, from 1917. And I was born in the city which has two names, one Romanian name and one Hungarian name. Temesvar is its Hungarian name, and Timișoara is its Romanian name, because, as I explained, because until the Hungarian influence remained until this very day. I would say the old generation speaks still Hungarian. The new generation hardly. Okay, I was born in 1940. It was Rosh Chodesh Adar. It was a leap year, and I was born after a family tragedy. My father lost his brother, and they were so close to each other, like they would be one man. I cannot even explain. It was, and my father knew that there is not a custom to name a baby after a young man who passed away, but he couldn't withhold himself. And he knew that. My father was a Talmud Chochem, he knew. But he couldn't, and therefore he gave me the name of his brother. But 2 weeks after then, I was so sick, and it was clear that it was a result of that name that I got after a young man. He was altogether 30, his brother, when he died. And so then I was operated. I had a team of doctors around me, all of them going, and they said, it's a pity of the money. Okay, no, it's not kedai, it's not worth. It is just, wait. Okay. I was then so sick that nobody believed that I would survive. Because a baby of 1 month or less than a month, his inner parts of the body are so tiny and small, and thin like a hairbreadth, not even that. So to operate this is almost useless, especially in those days, 70 years ago. It's not like today that there are many, I would say, developed instruments that it's different today than to 70 years ago. So anyway, I got then the name Dovid. That was added to me, and I had 3 names. Before, at the bris, I was Shimon Yehudo, and then Dovid. And the Rav of the city gave us, my parents, a broche, and it's written, Keil Shaddai Yitein Lachem Rachamim. It's a posuk. It's Yaakov Avinu said it to his sons when they went down to Egypt. And Shaddai is the name of Hashem, but it is the 3 letters of my name too. David Shimon Yehudo. And therefore, I don't know if therefore or what, but I survived, and I am here. Now I go back a little bit to, so, this place where I was born, as I said, it's Romania, Temeshvar or Timișoara. The Hungarian name is Temeshvar, the Romanian is Timișoara. I was born in 40, and my parents actually married in 1939, and an uncle of mine, who later turned out to be, he was my uncle. He was the shadchan between my parents. He knew my mother because he was married to my mother's older sister. And he knew my father, I don't know from where. He just visited in our town because he was not from our town. But he knew very well my father, and he was the shadchan, as we call it. After then, I grew up until the age of 10 in Temeshvar. I learned it was a Jewish school in the morning, but not frum at all. It was the governmental school, but it was Jewish. Only Jewish kids learned there. And in the afternoon, that means from 3 o'clock plus minus, we went to the cheder. We learned until 7:30 in the cheder, Jewish stuff. So the day was, we were occupied the full day, because in the governmental school, let's say until 1, 1:30, and then 3 o'clock in the cheder. It was not an easy thing, but we were happy children. I can say I was a very happy child, because my parents were really very, very special. I can say my father was, he never took money for his activity in Jewish affairs, and he never pushed himself to do these things as well. Only the rabbi of the city said nobody can do it, only you. Reb Chaim, you must do it. There is nobody there to make it.
But what did he do? What did he do, your father?
For his life, he was, in those days, he made matzeves, Jewish I will show you later a work of his, which, because he was not a simple
tombstone.
He had talents. He was an very intelligent man. He played chess. He was in the team of the city to play against other cities, because he was a very clever man. And he told me once, I remember I was a child, I played chess because chess is a play of seichel. I'm not playing cards or these things what they are muzzle, playing for muzzle. I play only because you use the brain. And my mother was really very talented in housekeeping, but outstanding. The house was more like a pharmacy, neat and clean and organized, unbelievable. And the balaboste from #1. And this was until we lived there. The parnosa of my father was not easy. He worked very hard to make parnosa. And then in 1950, the Romanians opened the so-called the Iron Curtain, because until then we couldn't leave the country.
Can I just ask you, these 10 years were one of the most difficult years in our history, with the Shoah and with the Germans.
And that's right.
Did that affect your town? Did it affect?
I explained that. You're right. Your question is exact. I can tell you, the German army conquered us. We were under. I am called a survivor of the Holocaust because of that. I have a card. Because we were under the German occupation already. We had to flee from the city. It was before Rosh Hashanah. We took a balagola, a goy, a wagon, we and another Jewish family. Everybody in the city did the same. Took a goyish balagola, and we just went. Whoa! Until what I can say is that we went to the east, because the Russian came from the east, the Russian army.
Do you remember?
Yes, absolutely.
How old were you roughly?
4.5.
Oh, so this is 4 years into the war.
But I remember it's like now. It was before Rosh Hashanah, and we just traveled. The Balago had a weak horse, and he was worried that the Russians will take it, because the Russians, they were the biggest ganovim, and whatever they took, they took. I remember everybody was worried for his watch. In Russian it is davai chas. Davai chas means give me your watch. Davai chas. Everybody was afraid, because the Russian army was so poor, basically. The soldiers had nothing. Mamish, can you imagine that to have a watch, it was a great thing, unbelievable great thing. Okay, now, we were, as I said, the German army conquered us. They didn't work in the direction of destroying the nation, to take us to Auschwitz. They were not busy with that. There was a section, the SS, and the SS used to come plus minus 2 weeks after the army conquered the place. So we were already occupied by the German army, but the SS came in these, after the 2 weeks, And we had a date, actually, when we go to Auschwitz.
Wow.
We had a date, and I remember the parents had to organize, because they told us, you will have to walk a lot, a long distance, and it will be difficult, and you must have very good shoes, excellent shoes, and good coats, because it will be cold. And all this was a big bluff, because that was a plan to take away from the dead people all the stuff. And that was their plan. And they told us stories. And unfortunately, we were under the story of Kastner as well. Kastner, who spoke about, who basically he participated with the Germans.
It's very controversial, very...
Okay, I am not going into...
No, there's
No, he was a Rosh Gomor, because he
didn't warn the people.
Exactly.
He didn't warn.
Tell them, this is the situation. We are under the terrible danger, and he spoke about they take us to a place which they called Field of Bread, like Bethlehem. The name Bethlehem was almost parallel to that name. Bethlehem.
Did Kastner come to your town?
He was not in our town. I don't remember that he was in our town. But he comes from the district that I mentioned earlier, Transylvania, from another city. He comes from a city called, in Romanian, Cluj, in Romanian, or in Hungarian it's called Kolozsvár. Kolozsvár, and he is from that city. And he, okay, as I say, I am not entering into this discussion. Is what was he really? To our understanding, he was very bad. He should tell us the truth, and not.
The problem, Rav, is what we heard is that people paid a lot of money to go on the train. People paid a lot of money to go on the train, and a lot of friends and family were saved. But what about not warning the others? And
how many people could he take altogether?
I know, but it
was limited.
He could have warned others that there was such a danger, and
that everybody shall go to another area. Everybody shall run away. And if the Germans cannot have all the Jews concentrated in one place, they couldn't rule over us.
It's a very sad episode of...
Yes. Okay. Now, my parents, survived, because what made that we survived? That in these 2 weeks that I mentioned, the Russian army arrived.
Wow.
And that saved us.
If they wouldn't have arrived,
that would be the end.
Wow.
We were, as I said, we were also planned for Auschwitz. What's about? HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that the Russian army shall arrive, and that was the reason of fleeing from the city, because we knew that the moment they will come, the German army doesn't immediately give in, even though this was in 1944, and in 1944 the Russian army was already defeated. But people think that a defeated Germany already ran away from the battlefield, and that was then. That's not MS. They, how shall I call it? They retreated, yes, but always stopped. They didn't go retreating until Germany, what theoretically should happen, but they don't. They're
like ingrained themselves.
Again, they entered into a battle situation, and when the Russian came, it happened a battlefield between the two. And this was the danger that we shall be caught in that, and therefore we fled. The whole city left the city, the people, all of them. They left everybody to a different village, but to the east. Why to the east? Because from the east the Russian came. So they were our savior who saved us. But from the other hand, we were chittering, shaking from the saviors, because they were Ganovim, terrible Ganovim. We say in Yiddish, Fonye Ganev. That is the name of the Russian altogether, Fonye Ganev. Fonye is the Russian. And this is what they were. Okay. After the war, after this, when the war was finished,
but Rav, can I
we
just
came
mention,
back.
Do you remember the Russians when they came to when they occupied the?
Absolutely.
You remember the Russian soldiers?
I was sick, and we were living in a very central place where the Russian army came. They came in a very central place, very big road, and they came in day and night, weeks. Unbelievable. I'm telling you, there were more than whatever exists in the world. They came, the tanks. I remember the Russian tanks. I was sitting in the window because I was sick. I didn't go to school.
Was this, you were back in your town?
Yes. We came back after the Germans. There was a battle between them, and what happens is the Germans lost it, and then they retreated again. I don't know how many kilometers, 10, 15, or 30. I don't know. And then they also again they as I mentioned earlier, they didn't run until Berlin.
No, they stayed.
They stayed, and they, how do you say?
Entrenched. They entrenched.
They
entrenched themselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
Rav, can I ask you, do you remember when the Germans came to your town?
No, that I don't. When they were there, I remember. But when they arrived to us, I don't remember. And I was too small.
And when they were there, do you remember the Germans in your town?
They were. I had blue eyes, and I had blonde hair. Hair. I have even today my hair from that time. My mother put it away when they made me the halakha.
Wow.
But when they cut me the hair when I was 3, I have it still, and it is blonde. But the German army, I was a beautiful child because of that. Blonde eyes, blonde hair, and blue eyes. So I was exactly the ideal child. They gave me, when they saw me, as I said earlier, the army, it's called the Wehrmacht. The Wehrmacht didn't touch us. They didn't touch us. They didn't make us anything wrong. Because that belongs to the SS and not to the Wehrmacht. So they give me even sweets and
but they didn't know that you were Jewish?
Maybe yes. Maybe. I can tell you one thing. You said something interesting now. My father's workshop was outside the town, because that kind of workshop is close to the cemetery.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is at the end of the city, because the cemetery is outside the city.
Yeah.
When the German army arrived, what I say now, that was my father told me this. They met my father. They needed water, so my father had a workshop, and they came in for water, to drink, and my father spoke a most beautiful German, Hochdeutsch. Well, it's called Hochdeutsch. It's a cultural language, not the rough language.
Where did he learn it?
Huh?
Where did he learn to speak German?
They spoke at home like that, with his parents, as a child.
They didn't speak Yiddish?
Yiddish and this, both.
Wow.
And most of the Jews were like that. My father-in-law also spoke beautiful German, the same. And the Germans spoke to him, and he spoke with them. Well, that was under friendly relation.
And they knew he was Jewish?
Huh? Wait, they say to him, you are a German. But it's not because they knew, they were so rough, so unintelligent. You cannot believe, you think that all the Germans were at least intelligent. It's not MS. And so they say to him, you are a German. My father was shocked. My father asks them, why do you think so? So they answered him, because your German is much nicer than ours.
Wow.
You speak Safa Meturbetet, it's called cultural language.
Like a high German,
Huh?
a high German.
High German, and we are not, we cannot. The soldiers said to him like that, and therefore we think that you are German.
Wow.
Yeah, but my father, it's special man. Ich bin Jewish. Ich bin a Jew.
He told him?
Yes. Ich bin a Jew. Ich bin a Jew. That was my father. Because he was so, I cannot explain to you his inner feelings. He was so Jewish, he felt better than if you do to me and will hurt me, I will not feel so much as he felt the difference between a Jew and a Goy. He felt that this is a different, like between us and a dog. He felt it. It was on a higher level. There is a posuk actually, unbelievable posuk. I say that is my father, that he was proud. He was proud in the emunah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He felt that we are something else. We are completely the Jewish essence. It's Hibdilonu minatoim. Hibdilonu, he separated us completely. We are not from the same.
It's Amsugala, special.
If we are people, they are animals. If they are people, we are angels. It's
wow.
a different world.
And Rab, did you wear a kippah?
All the time.
All the time? And your father wore kippah?
All the time. All the time.
And the Germans, they didn't separate you into a ghetto or...
In our place, as I explained to you, that was in another city. Now, what happened? This district, what I call Transylvania, which was the Hungarian district once, now it was Romania. But when Hitler came in 40, he cut Transylvania in two. He made what he wanted, whatever. Yeah. He decided that the northern part will be returned to the Hungary. So he returned half of Transylvania to the Hungarians, and the southern part remained Romania. And we were mamish, you will not believe, and on the edge of that place where he made the cut between the north and the south, and we were only one city was even a little bit more to the south, to the north. That was my wife's city, where she was born, and it's called Arad, not Arad as the Hebrew name, Arad. Arad was a little more closer, and they also survived because it was all that what remained Romania, we survived. And all what was called Hungary went to Auschwitz. And my grandparents and my aunts from my father's side and from my mother's side, with their children, all of them went out to Auschwitz. I lost all my family from my father's, my grandfather lived from my father's side, was in Temeshvar with us. He's there on the picture. And he survived. He survived, and his grandmother, his wife, they survived together with us. But the grandparents from my mother's side, with her sisters, and my father's sisters as well, because they lived in an area which went back to the Hungarians. And they were bigger ashamed than the Germans. It is hard to believe that the Hungarians were bigger ashamed than the Germans. Perhaps I will later tell the story of what I met.
No, Rav,
in 10 years ago, I visited Budapest. And I went to Budapest as a tourist. But it wasn't my target. My target was to arrive to Temeshvar, to the cave of my grandmother. I felt that she wants me to I will tell you, it's not possible what happened. Shabbos afternoon, I am in shul, and there was a from Jew and a rabbi.
This is in Budapest.
Huh?
In Budapest.
In Budapest. They speak, and they mention Temeshvar. You know, automatically, since it was my place of birth, so I asked the man later, what do you have in Temeshvar? So he's a soicher, in real estate. He has offices in Temeshvar, in Bucharest, in Budapest. He lives here in Jerusalem, but he has offices all over. It seems to be, he knows the business. And he was very kind. I say to him, and how do I arrive there? He says, I am going back, I'm going with my car. So he has a car in Budapest, and he drives from Budapest to Temeshvar. Even though that Budapest is today Hungary and Temeshvar is Romania, he can we join you? Because I went with my son, with Chaim. And I said to him, can we join you? Sure, with pleasure. I'm telling you, I had no clue.
It's Min Hashamayim, that you were in the same, davening in the same...
I tell you, I knew only one thing. I want to arrive to my grandmother. But I didn't know where, where shall I eat, where shall I sleep, nothing. Absolutely, even I didn't know if we go by train or bus, nothing. And the HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings this man, Shabbos afternoon, and he says, you can join me. Wait. We join him. We arrived to Temeshvar. He's such a kind man. It was afternoon, and he knew it is late. The day is very late. He took us straight, without asking us, to the Jewish cemetery. And I told my son Chaim exactly how the Jewish cemetery looks like, and how the path will go right, left, then this,
then you remembered from
everything to the last dot. Chaim didn't believe. I told him the entrance is like this and like that. I described everything, and it was exactly. He says, how do you remember all this? I remembered everything.
And it wasn't desecrated, the cemetery?
The same as it was.
It was untouched?
Untouched. I arrived to my grandmother. I tell you, I felt I mean, everything was prepared for me. I go, this man, you think he put us down and left? No. He waited until we davened by the kever. Then he was a religious man. Yes, his son's learning yeshiva. And we came back. We didn't know where we go to sleep or to eat something, nothing. He says, you come with me. You come with me. Good, we go with you. We go with him. He had a house, not a flat, a house alone, 3 stories, and he brought with him from Budapest, because he has in Budapest also a flat. He brought from Budapest mattresses and cushions, everything for us. I saw, but when we started, before we left, he packed into the car. I said to him, and I said to my son, I don't know, what is he doing? What is this? This was for us. He took everything that we shall sleep by him. And when we arrived, he turned off his, what do you call that, sharbul, sleep, and made a wonderful, wonderful dinner. Unbelievable. And then we went to sleep, and we wanted next day to arrive to another city where my grandparents lived, those who remained in Auschwitz.
But Rav, in this city, did you go see your house where you once lived? Does it still...
the house where I was born, I was born at home, not in the hospital.
Did you go see it?
No, I didn't. I was interested not in that, not in this. I was interested in the grave of my grandma.
Can I ask, how was your feeling when you were at the kever of your grandmother? How was your feeling?
Unbelievable.
When you actually was in front of your...
I say to her, thank you what you organized. Because I felt clearly that all this organization, that we didn't have to make nothing.
Nice.
That was her work. I know one thing. I was 4 years when she passed away, and she loved me very much.
Wow.
She wanted that I shall arrive to her. I'm telling you, she wanted that I shall come.
Unbelievable. It's nice. It's mamish.
That is my feeling. That was my feeling, that I came where she organized for me everything. And therefore I was not interested in nothing else. That was the Iker.
Can I ask, in that town, was there still a Beit Knesset?
Huh?
The Beit Knesset?
The Beit Knesset, I know exactly what happened. No. Now, in our city, there were, in my area, let's put it better, in other areas were also shuls. Nothing remained. Nothing remained. So we had, one was for those who davened Nusach Sfarad, the Hasidim, and one was for those who davened Ashkenazish. And the Ashkenazish was a bigger shul, and it was called the shul. And the Hasidish was called the Beis HaMedrash, the Beis HaMidrash. The Beit HaMidrash was completely destroyed. I didn't even go to see. People told me, you have nothing to see, it is finished. And in the shul, they made some, it was not a shul anymore, finished. They made from that a museum or something like that.
But that didn't interest you?
What could I see there? The museum? Nothing. Nothing.
Are there still Yidden living in the village?
It's a very interesting question. I don't think so. And maybe there are one or two, but in that city I didn't see the Jewish people at all. In this next city where I went, that was what in Yiddish is called Grossbardein. I don't know if you had that name. Grossbardein. Grossbardein was a very, very Jewish city. 30,000 Jews, all of them went into Auschwitz. Where my grandparents and my aunts and my cousins, all of them in Auschwitz. All of them. That was my grandfather and grandmother and my mother's, that from my mother's side, and her sisters, 2 sisters remained with the children, remained in Auschwitz. 2 other sisters who were not married at that time, they came back. Just 2 sisters from the others who had children, they remained there with the children.
And they were killed?
They were killed. These sisters who came back, they were younger. They were the younger sisters. My mother was in the middle. There were 5 sisters. She was number 3. And the 2 older sisters remained there. The 2 younger sisters who were not married, they came back.
Were they in Auschwitz and they survived?
Huh?
They survived?
They survived, and they lived in the United States. Their children come to visit me.
Wow.
They came, and they come to Israel, and they come. They come to Israel. And the children learn here in yeshivas. Look,
so Baruch Hashem, they're from.
Look, this is. Wow. They came back. They came back and they built new families. From all of them from. I have no cousin who is not from.
Sure, that's
not from my father's side and not from my mother's side.
That's a big switch.
Unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Not even one. Some are learning in yeshivas. Some are good Jews, not busy in learning.
But all from?
From. Wow. When they come to me.
And Rav, this person, he took you to the next village?
No, wait, that's a good question. This person, in the morning, we had to arrive to the train. We had to be in the train station 7 o'clock in the morning. It was so dark that I have never seen in my life such a dark night. It reminded me of the darkness of Egypt in the I'm telling you. And he knew that we want to arrive to the train, and he knew that the train is at 7 o'clock. He got up in the morning, he took us to the train station with his car.
Wow.
He took us to the train station, which was a traveling distance from his house to the train station, half an hour.
Wow.
And he took us a tzaddik. I'm telling you, a tzaddik.
That's unbelievable.
His father is Ashkenazi, and the mother is, I think, from Turkey. Turkey is Faradi. But he, because the mother was from, and the father less, therefore he joined the mother's side,
wow.
Because he is from. And he wanted to be from. So therefore he carried on the mother's side.
Sure.
And the children learn in yeshiva. He told me which yeshiva, Or El Hanan. Or El Hanan is here in the city. And what can I say? It's a very interesting person. His brother was a son-in-law by Rabbi Abu Chatzera,
wow.
the brother of Baba Sali. His brother also behaved more on the Sephardi side because of the same reason.
The mother.
Because the two brothers were frum, and they went after the mother's custom because she was frum, and not the father. The father, I understand, wasn't so frum. So, but you can imagine how much his father, his brother, the man who took us, his brother was, or is, I don't know, he was because the Abu Chatzera, he passed away. He was the rabbi in Ramle, and he was called Baba Chaki. This was Baba Sali, and the other one was Baba Chaki, and he was the son-in-law of Baba Chaki. Very nice people, unbelievable.
And Rab, where did you take the train to?
To Grossverdijn.
Oh, to Grossverdijn.
Grossverdijn was the city of my mother, where she was born. And we wanted to arrive to also to Kvorim of my, who didn't arrive, Baruch Hashem, to Auschwitz. My mother's grandparents, the parents of my mother went to Auschwitz. But the grandparents of my mother are buried in Grossverdijn, and we wanted to arrive to their grave.
And did you see the grave?
Unfortunately not, because the thorns, the cemetery was neglected completely, and the thorns were twice and 3 times higher than we. My son Chaim, he so much wanted to see the Kvorim, because I explained to him more or less also from memory. From memory. I was there only once as a child. When I was...
And it was before you attended?
Absolutely. And I told him how the Kvorim are, what color, and I told him where to go. But it was impossible. He went out with scratches, full blood, because of the scratches. Even the watchman of the cemetery was a goy, and he was worried that we shall take a picture, a photo, because he's paid by the Jewish community, and he didn't want us. No, don't make a picture.
Can I ask you, Rab, the town where your grandmother's buried, that Beit Kvorim, that cemetery,
yeah.
Who kept it up? Who?
There is also, look, in the beginning, until the grandmother passed away in 44, and we left to Israel in 50, which is 6 years. Yeah. My father was there. Okay. But after then, there was basically nothing, and only the goys. Also, there was in that cemetery also a goy who keeps the things. Nothing.
Maybe he's paid by maybe he's paid by the community.
Oh no, yes, sure. Again, all these people are, because they're from where does the community have money? I will tell you, the Romanians gave us back all the Jewish communal buildings, and we rent them out to goyim, and that money is giving us some possibility to arrange Jewish affairs. You have?
Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Because we had buildings, the community, we had buildings. And all these buildings, now they give it back to us, and we rent it for them.
Wow.
That is what happened in Romania. Look, as a child, as I say, my father he so much understood my life, even though that my mother told me once a sentence, it killed me. She told me, you didn't know, never your father. I knew him. He took me everywhere. He showed me everywhere. And everything he explained to me. I grew up with so much knowledge because everything was explained to me. And she told me, but you didn't know your father. So I couldn't understand what she's talking. She says that that after the death of his brother, he became a different man.
Wow.
That brother that I mentioned earlier, that I am named after him. Shema Yehuda. Because it broke him completely. It broke him completely. I tell you, it remained on him also beside the emotionally. They were working in the workshop where they had this workshop outside the town. It was they built together. They worked together. They had 12 workers going. But so it brought. Later he remained alone. He had to take his parents still were alive, so he had to look after us, my mother and me, and later my sister, which was born after then in 45. And he had to look after the widow of his brother that she didn't leave. She remained living there by us. Unbelievable. And that was not, look, I don't want to say nothing.
Did he have any children?
She had one, my uncle who died, he had a child which was born a few months after his death.
Wow.
That was the only child that he had. But he didn't know his child because the child was born. I have contact with that child like this.
Wow.
She lives in Belgium, but we are cousins like that. Why? Because she, as I said, my auntie, the wife, the widow, remained living actually in our flat, which was not 100% fair from her. Because if it happens a tragedy like that, usually the woman, the widow, returns to her parents with the child. And she didn't do that. She remained on the neck of my father. So my father had to look after his family, after her and her child, and before then, they looked after their parents, my father's parents, together. And then my father remained alone. Everything was on him. Mm-hmm. He just collapsed. And therefore I understand what my mother says to me. But I will show you a piece of work, what he did.
Rav, can I ask, when your parents found out that their family, when your parents found out the news, I don't know when they found out that the family were all killed, that they...
It was the end of the world for Mom.
Do you remember that time?
I remember not exactly that time, a little bit later. I remember when the two sisters who survived,
when they came back.
Wow. That I remember. My mother said, we knew that they are coming to us. We heard news. You know how it went. The people arrived and saw them on the way, here, there. They said the two Farkas, they were called Farkas, the two Farkas girls are on the way back. My mother heard this. She couldn't go out to they came by train. And she said to my father, you shall welcome them because I will faint on the spot. I will faint. She couldn't. She knew that the whole family remained in Auschwitz. Only these two sisters came back.
Wow.
Not her parents. How old were her parents? They were not old.
No.
No. My grandfather could be 50.
Wow.
People talk today, the men of Auschwitz, the people of Auschwitz, כאילו they were born to be in Auschwitz. The expression is wrong.
It's very wrong.
I don't like it because the people of Auschwitz, the Auschwitz people. What do you mean, people of Auschwitz?
Wow.
They were born to be in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
So my father couldn't, my mother couldn't go to welcome them. Enough at home. So she said to my father that he should go, and he took me with him. And as I said to you, I went with my father all over, everywhere, and that made me so happy. I love my father, I love my mother too. I was very close to both of them. But he had a bicycle, and on the bicycle he put a small cushion that I should sit in front of him. And I was the happiest in the world, everywhere. Where not? Even to the river to fish, he took me. To, you know what?
Yeah.
Even to that. Not that it was his, he made it for me.
Wow.
I was a happy child because of that.
And Rav, seeing your aunts, your mother's sisters, that must have been unbelievable to see your mother's sisters coming. Off the train.
I can tell you, I remember it like now. They arrived in uniform like soldiers, because the British, they were really freed from in Bergen-Belsen in Germany. They were at a factory where they worked for the Germans. For the Germans.
So they sent him from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen.
Yes.
Many people were sent from Auschwitz, yeah.
To different places.
To different places for work.
You see, they worked in a factory where they created a weapon for the Germans.
Armaments, yeah.
Armaments, yes. And who made them free? Some by the Russians, some by the American army, and some by the British. They were freed by the British army. They arrived because they arrived first to their place, and they gave them this uniform, because they had nothing. They had the German schmatters. They had nothing. So they were dressed like soldiers. I remember that too. When we went to the station. Unbelievable. They were the greatest moments in my life.
It must have been very emotional, incredibly emotional.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And when they came to the home, when they saw your mother?
That I don't remember the meeting between them. I don't remember exactly the meeting between them.
But you seeing them come
I
off
was
the train?
there, sure.
Wow.
I was there, sure.
And you must have been 6, 7.
No. No. Look, Auschwitz happened in the Hungarian Jews were the last.
The last, in
44. 44. And in 44, I was 4. I was born in 40.
But when they came after the war?
I was 45. It was another year.
Another year, 5 years. Wow. And did they stay in your home, the two sisters?
For a while. Then they returned to Grossmardin, to their city. Later they married, Baruch Hashem, and they had children with whom I have still contact.
Wow.
I have contact with these cousins.
And Grossmardin, was that part of Romania? Or
yes.
That was part of Romania.
Then it came back to the
then it came back to
yes, because that is as I explained earlier. Grossmardin is the northern part of Transylvania, and all that. I can tell you a few names: Grossmardin, Cluj, Cluj is Kloisenburg. I don't know if you heard the Rebbe of Tzanz.
Yes, yes.
That is the Tzanz. The Tzanz Rebbe lived in Cluj, in Kloisenburg.
From Kiryat Sanz.
Huh?
From Kiryat Sanz.
Today it
Yes,
is.
Kiryat
They
Sanz.
call original comes from Tzanz. This is not his original name. Tzanz is his original name, and he arrived to Hungary, and he lived in Kloisenburg. Therefore, they call him the Tzanz Rebbe, the Kloisenburger Rebbe, and it's the same.
It's the same.
The same. That huge building that is in town. Just a moment. No, that is Belz. Sorry.
It's about
That's Belz. No, I mixed. Their kingdom is in Netanya.
But they also have Kiryat Sanz in Yerushalayim.
Yes, I'm sure
But
they have.
in Netanya.
But the
it's very
center
big.
is in the Laniado Hospital.
It's Kiryat Sanz, part of
It's
Sanz,
inside. He made it, the Rebbe, the Tzanz Rebbe, who died already. I can't tell you about him also, but it's not-
Rav, can I ask, when your parents found out that their family were all killed, did they go into depression?
my
happened to
mother
your family?
cried day and night. That was
Because they didn't know.
She couldn't do much. What could she do? She couldn't do nothing. She couldn't help. She couldn't do. What could she do? That was until in the 1945 years, and in 50 we left to Eretz Israel when the curtain, what is called the Iron Curtain, because now I will tell you another story. As I said earlier, the Russians came, they saved us. After the war was finished, the Russian army didn't leave the city immediately. They remained in the city for I don't know how many years. And they didn't have where to be. I mean, so the police, the police came, and especially, I don't think only to Jews, maybe to Goyim as well, I don't know. But they inspected the house. How many rooms do you have? We had 3 rooms, but big rooms. You don't, okay, one room goes to the soldiers.
Wow.
So we had 2 soldiers living there. Sometimes and it was a very, very complicated situation, because they came to my mother in the kitchen. They want a dish here, a dish there, and they made everything treif.
Yeah. Non-kosher, sure.
They made treif, all these dishes. What could I do? But you could never refuse.
You could never say no.
You couldn't. They were okay to us because we were okay to them, but otherwise the Russian army didn't have it was not a difficult situation for them to take out the revolver, the gun, and to shoot.
Wow.
Yes, it was. One day, I said earlier to you, my father he smelled who is a Jew. He could smell. He had no mistake, never. He could smell who is a Jew. And one day, the Russians who lived by us, two Russian soldiers, they lived there. They had their room, and they lived, and always what they needed, they come to us. Okay, what can you do? They had friends, soldiers, who came to visit them. One day my father says, this soldier is a Jew.
Wow.
He calls him aside, says to him, you are Jewish? He says, yes.
How did he know?
I'm telling you, my father had I cannot explain to you. His blood was a different blood, and I cannot explain to you. He says to him, "You are Jewish." And then he spoke to him Yiddish.
And he knew Yiddish?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
And then he even came to we invited him more, because we didn't invite the other Russians. We invited him, and you know, that's unbelievable. He told my father, but it is a top secret that I'm Jewish, and chas v'sholem that my friends, colleagues, the Russians should know. They will kill me. He says, it's unbelievable. We fought together. We fought together in the war, and they are ready to kill me if they know I'm a Jew. This is anti-Semitism. And my father used to invite him and play with him chess, because I told you earlier that the Russians love very much chess, and he played with him a lot of. I don't know much, but they played. I know they played chess. My father with his Jewish soldier.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was a part of.
Rav, can I ask you, when you decided to go back to Hungary and to see your village in Romania with Chaim, was it a very difficult decision to go back? Was that going to be for you, emotionally, to go back to Hungary?
No, it was. I was very happy that I could see my grandmother's cave again, after so many years. It's over 60 years that I didn't see.
Wow.
60 years, and I remembered exactly where I was. I told my son, I told him that the fence is red blocks. On the top of them is a iron decoration. On the fences, the red blocks are, let's say, high like this. On them, on the top, is going to be a decoration from iron, made all kinds of decorations. Exactly, Chaim says to me, how could you remember this? I remembered.
And you knew exactly in the Beit Kforim where your grandmother was?
Exactly. I knew where my grandmother is. And this brother of my father, whom I mentioned also, is also there.
And you went to his cave as well?
Sure. Chaim brought with him color, paint. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And the brush, because the letters,
it's faded with the time.
After 60 years, nothing remained. Only it is engraved inside the marble, but the color was wiped out. So Chaim painted everywhere again, the names, especially the names, so that if one of my family, my child or whoever will go, you will see the name. You will meet it quickly.
Rabbi, I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. Did your father do the mitzvah for his brother?
He made it for his mother. He made it for his brother.
Wow.
He made it for his sister. I didn't mention her before. A sister, he lost a sister. She was the first in the family that she passed away. An older sister than him. She was not married yet, and she passed away. That was the first. My father said that was the first clap, the first makkah that he got. She was the older sister, but my father loved her very much.
And he made the mitzvah.
He made the mitzvahs.
And it's still there till this very day. It's lo yaman.
He made 3 mitzvahs: mother, brother, sister.
Wow. And you had the zchut to see it. Sure. And Chaim as well.
Sure. Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not easy. It was not easy, can I tell you? But I saw that what I explained earlier, that this man, I have his name and his card.
No,
It's unbelievable. He's a very nice
he
man.
was a shaliach. He was a...
Mamesh mishamayim.
It's all min hashamayim.
Everything.
How would you have gone there? How would you have...
I had no clue, no. I'm telling
And you decided you're going, and
yes,
what will be, will be.
What will be, will be.
Wow, Rav, that is
I
amazing.
didn't know nothing. Even I didn't know the train. I didn't know bus. I didn't nothing. But we'll go.
It's the zchut of your grandmother. It's the zchut
Yes.
of your grandmother.
Yes, I said it clearly to Chaim. You shall know, this is my grandmother's work. She made us the way. There is a Chazal by Avram Avinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avram, "Tzei, go out, uchvosh haderech, and conquer the road, lifnei banecha, in front of your children." I said, this is what happened to us.
At Mamish is?
Mamash. I felt this is what Chazal tell us about Avram Avinu. He had to go in front to make the road. Because that's a Ramban. It's a long story. That all the history of the Jewish nation was actually minimized by the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The whole history of the Jewish nation is in their life, by the others. I can tell you, I give you one example. Avraham Avinu went down to Egypt with his wife. He says to her, "You shall tell that you are my sister, because otherwise, the Horgoisi, they will kill me, and you, they will keep alive." He said to his wife, to Sarah, in Egypt, what did Pharaoh say to the midwives? That Kol haben hayilod, all the sons which will be born, hayoiro tashlichiu, throw them into the river, v'chol habat techayun.
They will live.
Exactly the same words like Abraham says to his wife. This is Ramban.
Wow.
Therefore I love him, because now nobody is near to him.
The Ramban, Nachmanides, yeah?
Yes. People know that when I Shabbos Friday night, if I am here, I tell them, usually I go to the children, but when I am here, I go, there is a minyan in the building, and they ask me to speak. And before I even start speaking, they bring a chumash with Ramban, and they put it. They know that I am.
It's true. It's mamish true. You're right.
This is one example. I just gave you an example to understand what is the pshat, and this is go and make the road.
And that's what you did. You mamish. You went, and Chaim was behind. It's unbelievable.
It was very interesting.
Okay, Rab.
It was very
I want to thank you. This is our first part with the your story about the Shoah, and you really were. It's not you.
My story
that you survived. That your family survived. It's a nice as well.
It's a nice, absolutely. Because if the Russians don't arrive, we are also in the Shoah.
But it's true. If they wouldn't have come in those 2 weeks. And Rav, can I just mention something which is an anomaly in history, in any military? The Germans in Machshema knew they were going to lose. They knew. But
didn't bother them. They were busy losing, and in the same time taking...
using all the supplies to kill Yidden.
Yes.
They would take the the railways.
They
instead
were
of
the
defending-
railway was still working to Auschwitz, and they were already defeated. Why did they ask from Rabbi Weissman? I don't know if you heard about.
Sure.
They asked him 20 cars, big
Vans,
trucks.
like trucks.
Why? Because the German army was already lost the war in the battlefields, and they had to flee from the battlefield, and they needed the cars for that. He couldn't supply it because the Jewish world didn't help him.
I know.
Yeah, it's another story, but the Jewish world didn't help him. He turned to them, I can stop the Auschwitz, I can, if Eichmann gets the cars, maybe he promised that then he doesn't carry on with the Auschwitz. And he begged to the Zionist Federation in Israel, in Switzerland, in America, all over. He turned to the Jewish community to help him. These cars, okay, they wanted some 20,000 cars. It was not a big deal for the Jewish community.
It's a very sad part of the history.
They didn't do that, and the man in Switzerland said, I cannot hear words of murder. It is not nice. It's not nice. This was his reaction of the Jewish. He was the chairman of the what we call the joint. If you heard about the joint,
yeah, sure.
The joint. He was the head of the joint in Switzerland, and he just can't hear these words. It disturbs him. Murder. Rabbi Weissman says, yes, it's murder. They killed the Jews. No, he can't hear it. He can't hear it. And we had Jews like that also. What can we do?
But Rav, with your family, that the Nissim, that you survived, that the 2 weeks, not only the 2 weeks, that the division of the towns, that your town would be saved, just literally on the border. If it would have been a bit higher, then it would have been part of Hungary, and then
we are going.
That's unbelievable.
Okay, I'll tell you one story. When I went to my grandmother, I went via Budapest. I went first to Bern. There I met this man who took us to Temesvar.
Yeah.
Friday night, we went to daven in the shul, the Orthodox shul. There was a rabbi, Take Tzanzer, also from a Tzanzer Chosid, a very nice man. Next to him was sitting a very old man. He says to us, the community, we were all the community, most of them were guests, because we came from outside. Yeah? He says to us, he smiles, he says, I say Shalom Aleichem to the rabbi, and he told us from where the rabbi is. He was named after a city in Hungary because he was maybe he himself was a rabbi there before the war. Mad, that Mad is the city. I know about Mad more than this. I know, but I am not talking now on that. So we call him the the rabbi of Mad. He says, but his age I don't tell you. And he smiled because of Ayn Hara. He was over 100.
Wow.
I'm sure. He didn't want to tell us how old the man is. He came to visit from America. What was the purpose of his visit? Now listen. Did you hear or see even, did you visit Budapest?
Yes.
Do you remember the shoes on the border? On the river of the Danube, the shoes.
The shoes, yeah.
You know what this is? You even don't know what that
No,
means.
they killed the Yidden. They pushed the Yidden into the river.
Exactly. Exactly. So you understand, but the shoes they need. The shoes shall,
Yeah,
it's a pity for the shoes.
But the Yidden, they pushed
They
into
took
the river.
off their shoes, they left it there, they tied each Jew to the next Jew, they shot the first one,
And
he
then they
fell
would
into
go-
the river and he slept with him,
Yeah, the others.
all of them. This rabbi, unbelievable. It's a schus what has happened to me. That Shabbos when I was in Budapest, he was one in the chain. Somehow he managed to survive. I don't know how. I don't know how. But he was one of them. He came to say Birkat HaGomel.
Sure. Was this his first visit back to Budapest? Was this his first? We don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
But he survived.
He survived. The rabbi of Mad.
They say the river was red with the
From the
Yiddish
blood. Yes, correct. And he was there. He was amongst these people.
Unbelievable. Rav, I just want to thank you so much.
Okay, we can talk and talk and
Well,
talk.
Rav, if I can just thank you so much.
Okay.
It's been the greatest chut. I cannot thank you enough. I just cannot thank you enough. Just to remember back in South Africa and here in Eretz Israel, but for you just relating what happened, it's such a chut to hear these Nisim. I'm listening to Nisim, real Nisim.
Correct.
And I'm touching somebody whose mamish is.
I went through Nisim in South Africa also.
Rav, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good, thank you. It was.